folks, and welcome back to my new Model Balmy channel, and we're back in the man cave. So what are we up to this time? We're up to this. So this is a 3D, or it's actually two 3D printed carriages that were given to me by the guys at Budget Model Railways at the Sompting Model Railway show last year. And these were hot off the printer, so when I caught up with Doug from Budget Model Railways, he'd literally just finished printing these, and he said, well look, if you take these, perhaps you'd build them for us, see what you think. So what I've got here are two carriages for OO9. One of them actually is a carriage, I should say the other one's a wagon actually. So I've got a carriage and what looks to be a sort of cattle or livestock truck when it's made. Now the idea of these, they produce them to sit on these little Pico, let's get that in focus, Pico chassis kits. So I've bought the two chassis kits, so I'm going to build these two now. The first job, I think, like a lot of 3D prints, is clean up. So I'm going to clean up all these pieces and then we're going to start thinking about what we're going to do next. Okay, so I've done some of the cleanup, so anybody that's used to dealing with 3D printed models on the filament machines would soon know that you get a lot of these sort of snots and bits and pieces that you need to clean up. So I've done the bulk of them, I just needed a bit of filing. It'll probably need a little bit of filler when it all goes together, but I've done all that. Carriage sides, I've scraped off the door handle and the handrail because they were moulded a little bit over scale for me. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to drill out some holes, three, 1, 2 for a handrail, and I'm going to make that out of wire and do a little handle out of wire. So I shall do that before I assemble it, because it's going to be a lot easier to drill it now before I start gluing it all together. So that's the next job. Right, so I've drilled the sides of the carriage out, and I've put a new handrail and a new door handle in, which is just some wire. So I've done both sides. I've glued the ends on the carriage. This end did not want to stick at all, so I've ended up having to use a two-part epoxy to keep all that in place. The cattle wagon, I've glued the ends and sides. Had to use a lot of glue. This for some reason just did not want to stick. I've used two different types of super glue on this, but anyway, I've left it to dry overnight and that's okay now. I think what I'm going to do next, I'm going to put some weight in here just to weigh them down a bit, because I don't rely on the little weight on the chassis kit. Find that for you, which is that little bit there. It's pretty insignificant, so I've got a bit of scrap lead, so I'll do that. And what I think I'm going to do with the carriage, I'm going to put a rudimentary interior in here, so just some seats, and I might put a false floor, and I'll sandwich the lead between this original floor and the new floor, and then build the seats above that. So I think I'll do that next, and then I can possibly airbrush the interior and then put the size of the carriage on. So I think that's what my next task is going to be. Well, as you can see, I've now put a sort of rudimentary interior in here. So this was just some angled plastic strip that I had. I think it was some Hornby railings, I think, that clip on the side of a platform. So I've cut the railings off, and the bit that was left, I thought if I chopped it up into sections, it actually made some reasonable seating in 00 scale. I've sandwiched a piece of lead, which you can just about see there, I think, between the actual base of the kit and a false floor. That just gives it a bit of weight. So I think now I'll just give the interior a quick paint, then I can pop the sides on, and then we can start thinking about painting the outside as well. Right, so I've primed the cattle wagon, and I've also, as you can see, I've pre-shaded it using the airbrush. That's just to accentuate a bit of depth and maybe a little bit of wear. So the next step for this one is going to be a coat of whatever colour I'm going to finish it in, probably another grey colour. So that's that one done, and what I've done with the Carriage is I've now given that a top coat. That's gunship green, and given it a finish of, it's a sort of satin finish, I suppose, on it now. And I've painted the interiors all done as well. So the next step will be to glaze that, and then I'll pop the roof on. The roofs have got a lot of lines on, a lot of moulding lines where they print this. I might whip those vents off, and I've got some Mr. Surfacer on order, because this type of plastic is quite difficult to sand smooth. I don't know what it is about it. It doesn't behave like injection moulded plastic in an ordinary kit. So I think I'm going to have to sort of use a surfacer on there to help me out. And then once that's done, I can pop that on, fill the cracks, and then give that a top coat as well. I've also, while I was at it, while I had the NATO, I used NATO black to do the, sorry, that was my airbrush compressor going off in the background. I'll turn that off. I've just used some NATO black on the chassis, whipped the buffers off as well, because they look out of scale and they don't look right. So yeah, I prefer NATO black in the Tamiya range of colours rather than ordinary black, because it looks more in scale. Black looks too black. I know that sounds a bit weird, but yeah, NATO black works for me. I'm going to glaze the Carriage using the packs that the chassis comes in, the chassis kit. So it seems pointless wasting this. I might as well just chop it up and then use that to glaze the Carriage. So that's where we're at.
The front door.
Right, firstly, sorry about the doorbell going off in the last sequence. I couldn't really edit that out. So here we go, that's the top coat on, and as you can see, the pre-shading you can still just about see. It just gives it a bit of depth, and I prefer that than an overall colour. It just, I don't know, just makes it look a bit more interesting. So next step, I guess, is to probably glaze the Carriage, and then I've really got to address these roofs. There we go then. I've glazed the Carriage with the packaging that the chassis came in, but oh dear, bit of a disaster. Let's turn around and have a look at the other side, and as you'll see, I was drying off the varnish with a hairdryer, which I guess I held on a little bit too long and a little bit too hot, and unfortunately it has melted the plastic. So this is somewhat buggered now, and it's just to prove that life in the man cave doesn't always go swimmingly, and yes, we do all make mistakes. So I don't know what I'm going to do now. I might well chop it about a bit. I'm going to do something to salvage it, I'm sure. But yeah, frustrating. This was after about 5 coats of paint and a couple of coats of lacquer. But there we go. Stupid mistake. And yes, I've learnt my lesson. You can see along the top there. Let's just turn that round. You can see how the heat has distorted it. But yeah, my mistake. So anyway, that's that. Let's just pop that on there. Oh, there we go, another mistake. See that happen all the time. Oh, let's forget that. Cattle wagon now done. So roof on, a couple of coats of Mr. Surfacer, and then some gap filler where the roof joins the 2 ends of the carriage, the wagon. And then it's had a few little bits of oil touches here and there, some rust streaking and some sort of dust wash on there, and I've glued the chassis on. So this one's done. So there we go. Nice little kits, if you don't cods them up like I did. That one's made nicely. I'm happy with that. That's good. This one, not so. But yeah, so in summary, they're great little kits by Budget Model Railways. And thank you, Mike and Doug, once again, for giving me these two to build and review. I'm sorry I've made a complete mess of this one, but I'm sure we can salvage it in the fullness of time. They don't fall together, these kits, like a modern Tamiya injection moulded kit, but you know, if you're a reasonable modeler, you can make a nice little carriage or wagon out of them. And salvaged just about, so that's the good side. I've put the roof on. I've made 3 more little vents because I chopped them off in order to smooth the roof off a little bit where it joins onto the rest of the carriage. So let's spin it round. Not perfect, but certainly better than it was. I heated it up again, and I used a pair of sort of grips to straighten the window frames up a bit, straighten the sides of the carriage along that way. So yeah, I didn't want to put too much weathering on this. I thought it would probably be presented in relatively good nick in reality. So yeah, there we have it. As I say, nice little kits, and very good value for money. So if you need some OO9 kits, get yourself along to Budget Model Railways website. And if you're in the Sompting area in a couple of weeks or so, I think it's about a month actually, they're going to be displaying one of their layouts and have their printers running, I dare say. So there we go. Anyway, we'll leave it there, and I'll catch you on the next project. So remember to please like and subscribe, and I'll just leave you with a quick shot of the 2 carriages on a layout. Anyway, cheers for now. Bye.